And Senator J.D. Vance is rallying in another swing state today, Michigan. That says his running mate, former President Trump, is set to appear in the Great Lakes state tomorrow. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more on some of the main issues facing Michigan this general election.
We're here in Waterford, Michigan, where Senator J.D. Vance is holding a rally. Michigan's a very critical swing state, holding 16 electoral college votes, making it one of the biggest swing states and very necessary to win here.
Look, we've only got so many more, there's a finite amount of re-election rallies left. I want to contribute in social media as best I can by bringing attention to my favorite issue, which is border integrity. Sometimes it's going to be tough. It's not always going to be a 13-hour drive like this one was, but I'm going to try and get to as many as I can.
Senator J.D. Vance has said that the biggest threat facing the United States is the Chinese Communist Party. And this follows the House Oversight Committee, who just released a report saying federal agencies aren't doing enough to counter the Chinese Communist Party's unrestricted warfare, particularly on manufacturing fentanyl, infiltration into colleges, buying farmland, and spying on U.S. military bases. Now, here in Michigan, just earlier this month, there were 5 Chinese students who were charged with lying about spying on a U.S. military base. Now, meanwhile, former President Trump is rallying in Arizona, where he said that he'll have presidential immunity, and that would allow him to fire Special Prosecutor Jack Smith in the 2 cases that he's brought against him. Now, the cases include the classified documents case, which was dismissed but is being appealed, dismissed back in July. And Smith is also heading the case against Trump, accusing him trying to overturn the 2020 election results. Now, former President Trump also raised the issue earlier this week in the Bronx of doing away with federal income tax. He said that he would replace that with higher tariffs on other countries, particularly China. Reporting from Waterford, Michigan, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
And joining us now at the Election Data Hub is NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, good evening to you. You've been following these election polls for quite some time now, with just 12 days until the election. If you could, compare where things stand right now versus where they were at this time in previous elections.
That's a great question, Steve. Let's actually look back to 2016. On this same date, using Real Clear polling average, October 24, 2016, Hillary Clinton actually had a 6-point lead over Donald Trump. Now, Trump would go on to win the presidency, but Clinton won the popular vote then by 3%. 2020, on this same day, Joe Biden with an 8-point lead over Donald Trump. Now, he would obviously win the presidency, and he won the popular vote, though, by only 4%. As you can see right here, 2024, Kamala Harris with about a 1-point margin over Donald Trump. So the polls haven't always been correct, but of course the popular vote isn't always a determining factor of who's going to win this election. Let's look at the battleground states, as those usually determine it. Battleground states here. On this same date in 2016, Hillary Clinton a 5-point advantage over Donald Trump. 2020, Joe Biden then had a 4-point lead over Donald Trump. In 2024, Trump with now a 1-point lead over Kamala Harris among these crucial battleground states. Now, what's the most important of the battleground states? Of course, Pennsylvania with their 19 electoral votes. Let's go ahead and take a look at who's winning that state here. This is according to an Emerson College polling taken just this week. As you can see here, Donald Trump a 1-point advantage over Kamala Harris. Now, rewind 4 years. In 2020, Biden won this state by just over 1%. That's approximately 80,000 votes. But as you can see, according to that poll I just showed you, Trump has made up that deficit and then a little some. So the question, of course, is, where's he getting those voters? Let's take a look at some demographics here, starting with men voters in the state of Pennsylvania. Men voters here, now these numbers here are the margins of Trump versus the Democratic nominee. Now, in 2016, Trump had a 17-point advantage over Hillary Clinton among the men in Pennsylvania. That was down to 11 against Joe Biden. And now in 2024, according to the polls, that's back up to 14. Now, that little 3-point bump here for Donald Trump is worth approximately 100,000 votes. Now, keep in mind, in 2020, Joe Biden won the state by just 80,000 votes here. So that modest 3-point bump is actually pretty big in Pennsylvania. Now, how about the female voters in the state? Let's take a look at those here. Female voters in the state of Pennsylvania. Again, these margins are the Democratic nominee versus Donald Trump. 2016, Hillary Clinton a commanding 13-point lead over Trump in this demographic. Biden somewhat maintained that in 2020, an 11-point lead over Trump among the female voters here. Kamala Harris down to an 8-point lead over Trump. Again, that 3-point bump, another 100,000 votes there in favor of Donald Trump. Let's take a look at one more demographic in the state, black voters in the state of Pennsylvania. Again, these numbers here, these are the margins of the Democratic nominee versus Donald Trump. As you can see here, 2016 and 2020, very commanding 85-point leads by Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. But look at this, down 12 points to 73 points for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump. Now that 12-point margin is actually about 90,000 votes. So Steve, these small, subtle changes among demographics have made big changes in a state like Pennsylvania, which is a toss-up to begin with. Back to you at the desk.
And for the first time on the campaign trail, Vice President Harris and former President Barack Obama will be appearing together. NTD News correspondent Jason Blair brings us the latest from Georgia.
Vice President Harris and former President Obama are here in Atlanta together for the first time during Harris's run for president. Now, with the home stretch underway, the campaign has been switching focus to more of a closing argument phase. The vice president's campaign said that this rally is, quote, the first in a series of when we vote, we win concerts, and their focus is to create enthusiasm and to get people out to vote early. And they haven't been shy about bringing in some star power to give their events a boost. As I already mentioned, former President Obama is here, but also here tonight is actor Samuel L. Jackson, director Spike Lee, and Tyler Perry. Then closing out the night is rock legend Bruce Springsteen, who will be playing some songs a little bit later. Now, Springsteen does have a history of being pretty publicly outspoken about endorsing presidential candidates. He was behind Obama. He endorsed Hillary Clinton in 2016. He endorsed Biden back in 2020, and now he's getting behind Harris.
Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are committed to a vision of this country that respects and includes everyone. They want to grow our economy in a way that benefits all, not just a few like me on top.
Now, just recently, Vice President Harris did a town hall on CNN, and the reactions have been pretty mixed. Former Obama advisor David Axelrod was on CNN. He had a few things to say, and he said there were some areas that Harris could have definitely improved on. Here's a clip from that.
The things that would concern me is when she doesn't want to answer a question, her habit is to kind of go to word salad city, and she did that on a couple of answers. One was on Israel. On immigration, I thought she missed an opportunity because she would acknowledge no concerns about any of the administration's policies.
Now back to the campaign trail. Harris's running mate, Governor Tim Walz, is making stops in eastern and central North Carolina. Then Friday, Vice President Harris is having a rally in Houston, Texas. Then on Saturday, she's being joined by former First Lady Michelle Obama in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Steve?
And we will take you to that rally tonight when former President Barack Obama and Vice President Harris take the stage. Meantime, voters in Omaha, Nebraska, are facing their unique role in this year's election, as the city could be a tie-breaking vote should battleground states leave Harris and Trump in an electoral vote tie. Democrats have nicknamed that city Nebraska's Blue Dot. The reference is being used to motivate voters. Residents are taking a spin on traditional candidate yard signs, instead painting their own, a big blue dot on a white sign. It's a way for Democrats in the state to remind their neighbors and friends that although they're only one small pocket in a big red state, that small pocket could wind up making a big difference. And joining us to break down what's at stake, here we have NTD's congressional correspondent, Melina Wisecup.
Nebraska has often been overlooked during this election cycle, but it could actually make a big difference in the House races, the Senate race, and who becomes the next president of the United States. Well, why do I say that? When you look at the map of Nebraska, yes, it's a big red map here, but then you have this one small area over here that Democrats are calling the Blue Dot. Now, within this district is within this city is Omaha, and then it's represented by District 2, which right now is a heated toss-up race between Republican incumbent Don Bacon and Democrat challenger Tony Vargas. Democrats look to be leading in this district. They're up by about 3 percentage points. That's based on a poll taken specifically in Nebraska's 2nd District of 600 likely voters. It's a New York Times poll taken at the end of September. Congressional leaders know this is a very important race for them, so much so that they took time off the campaign trail to come to Omaha and try to raise voter enthusiasm to propel either of their candidates to victory. And Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries even acknowledged its importance on the national scale. He said when he was on that stop there in Omaha, he said this could be the electoral vote that makes the difference. Why is he talking about the electoral vote? Well, this speaks to the national presidential race that we see. And that's because of Nebraska's split voting system, split electoral voting system. They have 5 total electoral votes, 2 of which are given to the state as a whole. Then you have the other 3 are split up by congressional district, 1 for District 3, 1 for District 1, and 1 for District 2. District 2 is a very volatile area. In 2020, this electoral vote was given to President Biden. Before that, they voted for Trump, and before that, it went to former President Barack Obama. So a very fluid area here. So why would this one electoral college vote matter? Well, in the case that former President Trump and Vice President Harris are tied with electoral votes among the other battleground states, this one vote could be the key vote to propel either candidate to victory. So I want to look at the polls. How are Harris and Trump actually doing in this specific district? Well, according to this New York Times poll that we're looking at of 600 likely voters taken at the end of September, in this specific district, Harris looks to be the favorite. But then you couple that with the fact that this district alone has a large block of nonpartisan voters. So to put this number into context, there are around 100,000 nonpartisan voters in District 2 alone, and compare that with the number of registered voters for Democrats and Republicans, there's around 150,000 in either party. So they're all around the same ballpark, the amount of registered voters. And this 100,000 block of nonpartisan voters could also impact a heated Senate race that's going on right now between Republican incumbent Deb Fischer and independent candidate Dawn Osborne. And Republicans are getting super nervous about this race. Why do I say that? Because they just pumped some last-minute funding into this race. Super PAC aligned with Republicans just gave $3 million to Senator Deb Fischer, the Republican incumbent, to try to boost her race here. Up until this point, Republicans thought that they had Nebraska in the bag. They thought that this was going to be an easy win for Republicans, brushed it off, but now they're actually seeing it might actually be in play. Why do I say that? When you look at the most recent polls in this race between independent Dawn Osborne and Republican Deb Fischer, the independent candidate is actually leading by around 2 percentage points. So Republicans acknowledge that this might not be such an easy race to win like they originally thought, and they know that one seat could really make all the difference, especially with such few seats that we have in play right now. So when we look at the balance of power, there are just very few seats that are actually in play, and while Republicans are favored to take the majority in the Senate, they need all the cushion they can get, not only to secure that majority, but also to pass certain legislation that they want to pass. I mean, as an example from last Congress, we saw just 2 sole senators were able to tank President Biden's landmark piece of legislation, the Build Back Better bill. So congressional leaders are highly aware of what a difference 1 or 2 seats could really make. Steve, back to you.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.